and welcome to Light Talk. This is Stan, and we're broadcasting from LDI.
LDI!
Hi, this is Steve, also coming from Las Vegas.
This is Ann.
And this is David, and we are the Lumen Brothers!
And sister, I keep telling them.
Is this thing on? I don't think it's on.
And here we are, once again, broadcasting live from LDI. And some of you were here at LDI last year. How many people were here last year? Oh my God. Return engagements. So you're going to have to teach everyone else how to behave during this thing. Over this year, we've obviously grown a bit. We have over 60,000 downloads, listeners in over, 67 countries?
62.
Crazy. I don't know.
64.
And we lost countries.
I thought it was 72, but
No,
I thought it was
67.
67.
Oh, anyway, we have a larger room.
Yay.
better lighting. We have gray light.
We are elevated on stage. That's pretty amazing, right? We have these really cool Light Talk caps, right? We have this stupid banner, right? And you know that you made it when you get some hats and a banner, so there you go.
And a sticker.
And a sticker.
Yeah, stickers are in the back. All right, this is our first podcast with the four of us in the same room. Normally we do this show on conference software and we're all wearing our jammies probably, but we never see each other in the same room. So here we are. Stan's normally in Florida, Steve's normally in Texas, David and I are SoCal, living the good life.
We're living the good life. So today, the Lumen Brothers and sister are once again broadcasting from Live Design International Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Woo!
And we're locked in a room. The doors will be locked. They'll be chained because we don't want anyone to leave over the next 45 minutes. And we're here with you guys. It looks like there are about 70 of you here, maybe?
10,000. There's 10,000.
For the people on the radio,
They're
there
the
are
biggest crowds.
10,000.
The biggest crowds.
Stan is channeling.
And we have the best words.
We have the best words, and I know everything. So anyway, we're here for about 45 minutes to talk about anything that has to do with lighting, design, and education, and to see if you guys can stump the chumps.
So we have passed out cards to our live audience so that they can write down questions to discuss various topics. We've chosen 8 questions from these cards. I think Ann did the choosing.
Uh-oh, don't blame me.
And we'll ask people from the audience who asked the questions to step up to the mic.
Just to acknowledge the question.
That it's your question.
Because we may ask them questions
Yes, it may
after.
become a dialogue.
Exactly.
So-
And the exciting thing is, each person who asks a question will get this special limited edition Light Talk baseball hat. Woo!
There you go. Let's
Okay.
talk-
Your colleagues will be so jealous when you look this silly at a focus call.
So because you are Light Talk fans, some of you followed instructions and some of you didn't. So some of you wrote your name on the piece of paper, and we know who to give a baseball cap to. So if we do one of your questions and don't acknowledge you, we want to know who you are so we can give the baseball cap out. So David, I think you have some questions there.
Oh.
Who do you want to start with?
This is for me. The question,
special.
yeah, special.
Oh, it's
We don't have the gray light
I know. Look out.
commercial
It's coming.
question. It's for me. How do you approach and design a show that has already been mounted? I know the person who asked this question. It's Terry Harper there. Everybody say hi to Terry.
Terry.
Yeah, you got to get up now and earn your abuse also.
Yeah, so there's no mic.
Yeah, where's the mic? Oh, we don't have a mic.
Well, you already asked the question. Right?
Oh, I already asked the
Yeah,
question.
so
That's
we
all
don't need a
right.
mic.
Terry Harper. Okay.
You just get your awesome hat. That's
All
how it
right,
works.
so it's a good question. I mean, how do you come in for another designer? And this does happen. It doesn't happen very frequently, but it does. First of all, I try not to watch the show the way it was done originally. But sometimes that's the only record of doing it. But we actually talked about this on a previous episode about research, didn't we, Stan?
Yeah, but that was sort of that was sort of looking at a finished production. Is that what this means?
Different production, yes. Yes, but this is relighting production.
This is
when
show
it's
doctor
that's
stuff,
been
right?
done,
Show
and you're a
doctor
new
stuff.
designer on
Exactly.
the same production.
Have you ever done Show Doctor?
I have not been a show doctor, but I've worked with many people that were a show doctor. That's the term of, the lighting designer before you either gets fired or demoted, essentially, and you get hired in. And really the key that I've learned from the people that I've worked for that do this a fair amount, because I've worked for some heavy hitters that do this, and they always say, don't fire the lighting designer. Like, the best thing to do is think of it like an educational situation. So keep the lighting designer there, even though it's a little awkward at first. Have a conversation like, look, I know this is weird, but I'm here to help, so let's look at what's going on. and then you evaluate the show and you can work with that person and say, I think what the director's seeing is you're missing some backlight that would cut them out of the background, and things like that. So you're actually making what could be a negative situation into a more positive one, and you're helping that person become I don't want to say a better lighting designer, but you're understanding the director and kind of communicating with that person a little further. So I think that's a good way to handle it.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify something. This may not be the case in this particular situation. There are some times when a designer has another gig that they're doing, or for some reason they have quit the production.
Sometimes you bring someone in and you're lighting, I don't know, you're lighting a concert. And today concert designers are much better than they were when I was starting out. But it wouldn't be unusual to bring in a concert designer to do the concert, and then someone to come in like Bill Klages to help them make that move to television and get it looking right on camera. You might have someone else who's coming in just worrying about audience. So, how many designers are on the Olympics doing different aspects of it and still coming together as one big giant thing? But Ann is right. The people I know who've come in as show doctors have always come in very quietly and said, do not fire the lighting designer, do not put my name anywhere in the program. I am simply here to help with a specific problem. And then they're out the door again.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'd like that gig. Go in and out the door quietly.
I'm thinking of one that's not theater related that I'm doing this month. In fact, I'm asked to light some artwork, and I'm trying to get the information from the curator, and I don't really have my head around what I'm going to be facing. So this person lights, there's another designer who lights for this person all the residences. So I said, maybe I should talk to the person who does this normally, because I'm the pinch hitter in this case. And then the curator connected us, and now I'm having this conversation with this designer who is a name that I know, who's New York based, and I'm stepping into his work. So how am I going to negotiate that? So initially, it's about respect. It's about helping. It's about, not trying to. It's sort of walking delicately and being a good diplomat and being respectful of the other person.
Yeah, and it's very interesting you brought that up, Stan, because sometimes you do come in that way, and then you have to make the decision, are you following the design according to the original designer's style?
Yeah.
Something I used to do for Ken Billington, who was just in the room the other side, but also for Gilbert Hemsley a lot, and also Neil Giampoulos. I'd go out as an assistant and actually recreate the lighting in that original designer's style. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of gray area here, depending on what the job is.
Since you mentioned style, this is artwork, and I'm sure I have a taste in how I might focus, how I might organize, how I might arrange lenses, but I don't know what this client's taste is. So the only way I'm going to really find out is from the guy who's been doing it for the last 5 years and say, give me some insight. When he said, what do you want to know? I said, well, what do I have to work with there on site? Because you know the inventory. And what wisdom can you offer me about satisfying this client?
Great. Time for the next question.
Absolutely.
It's a really hard one.
Stan gets this
Stan
one.
No, I don't want the hard ones.
It's
What makes a lighting designer a good lighting designer?
Who asked that question? Thank you.
Come on up, get your fancy baseball cap. I will be very disappointed if I see this on eBay in 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
I haven't even paid for them yet, so
Wait,
hang
it's
on.
already up. No.
They may go up in value. They're rare.
They are rare.
It's only 12 in the world.
They're getting rarer, too.
Right.
As they go by.
Oh, man, Steve, you go.
I think what makes a good lighting designer is someone who loves their work. It doesn't matter if they are working in a community theater or if they're working on Broadway or they're doing the latest Iron Man movie. I think if you have a passion for your work and you bring that passion in, I think if you're a decent human being, I think that's what makes a good lighting designer. We grow as artists. Things that we were proud of 10 years ago, we're still kind of proud of it, but we also look at it and go, wow, what was I thinking there? I think every day we become better lighting designers. We become better lighting designers by going to training classes downstairs. We become better lighting designers by being social and talking to each other and listening to each other, realizing we're on a journey together. I really believe, I sincerely believe this. I believe that I am in a loving industry. I think most of you look around USITT or SETC or LDI, you pick it, and you see friends that you have known a lifetime. And the industry is very small, and someone works for high-end one day, and next week they work for Philips, and the week after that they go to Robe. I think we're in an industry in which people know each other and care for each other and are interested in an art form that, we're a tiny little industry also. We're very small when you think about the big world of what's going on out there. So I'm all for passion for your work. It doesn't matter what level you're working on. It is coming to the theater every day and believing in the director and believing in the cast and believing what you're doing is the very best thing on the planet. And if you've got 6 lights, then be happy with those 6 lights. And if you're out there lighting Madonna, be happy lighting Madonna. That's what makes a good lighting designer.
I knew you'd have a good answer.
I have something I can add to that brilliant answer. I was thinking about the fact that we all contribute to a whole. We're all contributors in this process. And so what is the measure to determine if you are a good contributor to the creative work? And I had just one short line for you. If you can say that you left the show better than you found it, it's going to start at a certain place when you walk in the theater, and it's going to be at another place when the audience comes. And if it has improved and you've added to that, then I think you're good. It's probably a spectrum of what good is in terms of, but in terms of if you leave anything on earth better than you found it, you did good.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to say what's interesting about this question is it's not what is a good lighting design, right? It's what is a good lighting designer. So if we were talking about what a good lighting design is, that might be things like sculpting, that might be things about a sense of timing, capturing the mood, focus, all that stuff we're always trying to do with lighting design. But I think a good lighting designer has to do with the person in the room, kind of what you were just saying. Are you good in the room? So that means, are you a good diplomat, therapist, whatever you have to be that day to make tech move forward in a positive, loving, amazing, wonderful way where people enjoy their days, they love going to work, even if it's 16 hours. That means that you're good in the room, and to me, that's a good lighting designer.
I'm going to add one more thing. Are you a good team player? Mm-hmm. It's all about the team. And that includes everybody, technicians, actors, designers, directors, everybody. And also something that all the students that I spoke to just a few minutes ago in the other room, are you a problem solver? And that's just being a good theater person, not necessarily a lighting designer, but being a good theater person, because we're all there helping each other and we're solving problems. And the great lighting designers, I've seen a lot of very successful lighting designers. You may not think that they're the greatest artists in the world, but they always solve problems. And when you're there, during techs or doing run-throughs, something happens, guess where it all happens? Right around the tech table, right? Right around the production table. And you're there, it's a super high pressure moment, and you gotta think quickly and you gotta solve the problem. These are great answers. We should do this
we've
more
done this
often.
before, yeah.
How about once a week?
We can do it once a week, sure.
All right, I'll ask one. How major of a role do you see visualization tools playing? What growth do you predict within this technology?
Who asked that question?
Hey,
Come on
hat
up here,
for
grab a
you.
hat. Yeah, there we go.
Huge. It's huge.
It's a huge
It's
hat.
huge. No, it's a huge issue.
Good catch.
Can I see that question?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to grab it?
I like this question.
Well, I'll just add quickly then. I think visualization software is going somewhere. And that is not an answer. But I think that more and more where its place is that producers are not paying for time in the theater because it's so expensive. So I'm seeing more and more designers visualizing their work before they get in the theater. That's hurting us a little bit because we're not always getting paid for that time, that prep time. Plus, I find we become sort of more of our own programmers, which is also problematic in many other reasons, in many other ways. But I think visualization is here to stay and only going to become more and more because we need to problem solve this time crunch issue where the producers aren't paying for us to be in the theater. And at the same time, shows are getting more and more and more complex. Audiences and young directors are expecting more and more and more. So I think the only answer is trying to do our homework ahead of time and not just walking in the theater with a blank slate the first day.
Well, also, Anne, if you think about it in the corporate world, you have someone like Paul Mitchell and I have a room full of account executives, no one in that room is going to let me say, let me show you at Tech what it's going to look like.
Right.
Everybody wants to approve or to approve the design and sign off on it. And for those men and women in here who are doing rock and roll, you know, a good day when you're in the arena, a good day is 3 songs in 4 hours. And that's what's expected of you. And without visualization, you're not going to be able to come in and meet the demand of the client. So it's absolutely necessary. It's like the old days when someone said a computer light board, or you're using AutoCAD, you're using pre-visualization. Of course, it is the journey we're all on, and we're learning every day how to be more efficient as artists. And this is a tool that we have to master.
I have a long history with this question because the first time I saw a lighting visualization software, I fell in love, and I think it was born out of poverty in a sense. I felt like I didn't have a way to show a director or a choreographer what my ideas were unless I had a light lab with lights, and I didn't. Unless I had fiber optics that I have now, I didn't. I had a flashlight and a swatch book, and maybe there was a model, and I felt that was really pretty anemic. So when I first saw visualization software, and I think they might have been the first, if I'm not going to plug any products, but there was one company that sort of came out with this thing in that early 2000s. I said, I got to get this because I need to teach this. And
What company was that?
it was Cast Software. It was WYSIWYG, and it won an Academy Award back then because they were pre-visiting the award shows. And I said, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I've been waiting for this forever. And I got a grant. So I've been working with that stuff for 20 years. And not to plug them too much, but I heard today, well, we've been working for 3 years to make it free for academia, which it was announced on Thursday. So that's a milestone,
Wow.
right? But using that, when I was teaching at the Cal College and I wasn't at the University of Florida, we didn't have any money, right? But I couldn't teach a student what the light was going to do. We couldn't get in the theater. They were busy building. We couldn't turn the lights off. So to turn on a light and see what it's going to do in three-dimensional space was huge. And then to get a rendering, and then to storyboard, and then to plug a board in. So I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan for a long time. I think I teach it. I think you got to do it. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't, frankly. It's a fantastic tool and a time saver. And it gets your thoughts out of your head and into something where, oh, I see what that's going to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what your favorite visualization tools are.
I know people are going to think I'm crazy.
He likes a pencil.
No, I'm struggling and working my way through Light Converse. And I hear these days, I've been away from it for a while, maybe someone can answer I hear Vision has gotten much better and is super intuitive.
I was just
That's
There's
what I
a
use,
thumbs up
yeah.
in the back.
Okay. Have to see it.
Phillips
Last
has-
time I touched it, it was not intuitive. So, but I'm open.
It's still got a ways to go, but Vision is what I teach and what I use, and I've especially now that with 2019 Vectorworks, it's going to be free for education for 2019.
Oh, cool.
So I love it for that. You know, it sounds like the other ones are going that direction too, but I think it's getting much better. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I was just at the booth, and I was talking to one of the engineers there, and of course, you know, Vision's, it's a long history. You know, we were using Vision when they were their own program, their own company.
Right.
AJ was running that
AJ.
company, right? And a great guy, really nice person. Well, they saw, and it was so funny because they sort of had this relationship with Vectorworks. And even at LDI, their booths were right next to each other. And you know, when you had to go from Vectorworks to Vision, you'd have to change the symbols, you'd have to do all this weird stuff. And I would come into the booth, both booths are right next to each other. I said, why do I have to do this? And they both did the, you know, pointing at each other, right? Then then a few years ago, they sold Vision to Vectorworks, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And things got a little better, but in that transfer, that transition, it got really clunky again. So just talked to them today. They've gone ahead and they're doing this new type of, and I forgot the name of I think it's GD, someone help me with this,
GDTF?
TF, right.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you so much.
Universal. Right.
Now, the acronym is actually very, very filthy dirty. So you can figure out the acronym. But I mean the acronym. But anyway,
I just want to interrupt.
oh, please do.
My mother will be listening to this episode. So
She'll figure it out.
If you want to throw it in there
I'm not
for
going
her.
to throw it in there. We'll edit it out. But now that they're using, it's basically a universal language going from boards. I know the MA is using it now. By the way, the MA3 is fantastic. I just saw it. I just loved it. But anyway, they're using it. A lot of these new lighting boards are using this, and also a lot of the visualization software, so that things are more accurate. If a light can't get to primary blue, it won't go to primary blue, things like that. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to get there. So we'll see. And now that it's free, we'll all be able to handle it. And also, WYSIWYG being free is a huge savings.
It's a huge thing. It's a. I think what I heard today was you sign up for it with ID, student ID in the fall, and then if you don't get in by December, you don't subscribe by December, you only get design, you don't get live performance, and then it's $99 a year for students after that. Sounds good. I want to mention one other one that I like. I bought the book, but I haven't had time to play with it. Is Capture,
Which is also free
out
for
of Sweden,
students.
which is also pretty good. And Light Converse too. I mean, they're all making good stuff now. So it may just be the flavor of the one that you like or have history with. I've got 20 years in on WIG, so it might be not efficient for me to change at this point now that it's available for free. But they're all doing a great job. I think it's just a tool you have to know.
Well, fortunately, Simon put his name in.
Simon.
And this is, what is your preferred method of communicating your design to the director before load-in?
Carrier pigeon.
Come get your hat.
Could it be
Simone.
visualization?
Is it
Oh,
Simone?
Simone, I'm so sorry.
Simone, that's Simone.
Sorry, Simone.
Give her 2 hats.
Congratulations.
Do you use AutoCAD? Do you use watercolor? Does it vary depending on with whom you're working?
She's asking for Simon, is what she just
Oh,
told
so it's not Simone. Well, what is your name?
Bring that cap back.
Yeah, can we trust you with that cap? You're not going to sell it on eBay? Okay. Make sure it gets to Simon.
There's a couple things. I teach in Dallas, and I've been advocating with our students for years and years and years to use visualization partly to communicate their ideas to a director. It started, from a very simple request years ago. An opera director put a giant, 15-foot high statue in the middle of his set, and we wanted to show him what that actually meant and what the ramifications of having this thing dead center was. And once we worked through that, we could determine where we could put lights, clearly to keep the statue dead center, but how we could work around that and enhance that environment. So, I think the days of saying things like, let's go look at a sunset together here, let's listen to the Beatles album, I think those days are long gone. I spend a lot of time with the director in rehearsal. I ask them what they're trying to achieve, what we're trying to go, what is the direction we're taking. I don't show them images much. The bulk of my work has been in Europe, so I've always had that tradition of sitting in the rehearsal with the director, with these crazy Eastern European directors who walk into the first day of rehearsal and say, I need a chair. And here comes the State Theater people, and they put a chair. And he or she says, that's the wrong chair, let's find another chair. But they work through this a very slow, methodical way until they get everything really as they want it on stage. I've always had the kind of blessed life that lighting starts early in the rehearsal process, which is not what we do because of money restrictions in the theater. So I become kind of a member of the acting company in a way, working through the process for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, the reality when I'm working in the States, it is, as you know, it's every man and woman for himself. You have to work as fast as you can. You have to put up the most flexible rig you can. As you well know, there are a lot of theaters that want your light plot before the first read-through of the show. So you try to cover yourself as best as you can, and you make it as flexible as you can. My plots these days are huge moving light plots, but that allows me to have the flexibility so when I get into the theater, I can make those choices with the director as opposed to saying, oops, I put the light in the wrong place because you've now decided to do something stage left. and it's actually better stage left than it was stage right. So technology, in many ways, has made my life much easier working in the theater. So for me, it is one-on-one with that person in the rehearsal hall, at dinner. Maybe I am taking long walks with them, talking about the show and what we're trying to do.
Well, I guess it depends on the director. If it's a director I've worked with for a long time, and now I'm at a point in my career where it's rare, well, it's fairly uncommon that I work with new directors, that we already speak a visual language, and we speak in emotion. And my lighting is usually very expressionistic and very stylized, not always, but most of the time, depending again on the director. So there's very little actual visualization that I show the director unless it's a special moment that we're going to be working on or a special sequence of cues. I knew on Rusalka when I was doing that in Oslo, even though I'd worked with this director forever, there were so many special effects in this show, and I was also designing lighting and projections, and it was a big video show that I had to do a lot of video previs on it, which was good. It helped me, it helped him. We got to decide on content. You're more like a scenic designer at that point anyway, but still lighting had a lot to do with, obviously, with projections. If it's a new director, again, depending on the show and how open the director, and if the director speaks the language that I speak, but maybe not, then I do use some previs. I will show the major looks, but understanding that I treat lighting a show sort of like jazz. I'm a jazz player, and you may start somewhere, but that show's going to move, that show's going to evolve, which is why I love lighting so much. I think probably speaking for most people in this room, is that you're able to really move that show with the actors and the director, and things are happening. I kind of feel bad for the set designers at that point, because there's very little you could do as a set designer. And I do a lot of set design too, so it's like, God, I'm glad I'm the lighting designer, right? So I guess it depends on the director.
For me, research. I show research images. And then I have begun doing a lot of little pencil sketches, either pencil or pen, like ballpoint pen. I'm not very fancy. It's on like printer paper. I'm definitely not fancy. But sometimes I can't find the research image that pulls the thing out of my head and really shows it to the director. So if I'm really inspired by a moment, I do these little scribbly sketches with like stick figure-like things in it, and it's really basic looking, but it's enough to show, shadows and angle and maybe a sense of mood or something that I can't describe through the research images I found. When I make the research plates, I'll also put those renderings in there. So it's sort of an all-in-one thing when I'm talking to the director. And the second part of the question was, does it matter who you're working with? And I'd say, yeah, sometimes. For example, I've worked with a director once or a couple times that that person did not get research. I would show her something and she'd say, well, is the sky going to look like that? Is going to be this little bright thing here? That kind of thing. And when that happens, I just sort of shut the book and go, okay, well, let's talk about that scene. So it just didn't work for her, and that's okay. People think in different ways. So I'd say normally I approach it with the research and a few little scribbly renderings that I do, and then if I need to change course during the conversation, I will.
You are listening to Light Talk with Steve, Stan, and David, the Lumen brothers and sister. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by
Better Than Nothing Industries, and they are presenting the BS Blaster Shock Collar. It's available downstairs at LDI right now. Whether you have a salesman with a passion for persistent verbal product enhancement, or a customer you would like to train to tell the truth about what he or she can buy, you may want to consider the BS Blaster Shock Collar, aka electronic collar, e-collar, or remote shock collar. As with any method of behavior modification, there are pros and cons. Ultimately, it is up to you to choose what method works best for your needs. The BS Blaster Shock Collar is not intended as punishment, but more as a deterrent to negative behavior. The theory is that your person will associate the unwanted behavior with a slightly uncomfortable zap and stop doing whatever they're doing until they no longer do it and remember not to do it anymore. The shock administered by the BS Blaster Shock Collar is safe. So while it is certainly enough to get the attention and deter certain behaviors, it won't cause any lasting physical or mental harm. For example, when you walk into a booth at LDI, both customer and salesperson place their shock collars around their necks. A conversation begins with the customer saying, "I'm ready to buy 100 of those moving lights." Zap! He's not ready to buy 100 moving lights, and he doesn't even have the money to do it. So the salesman assures him that he can meet delivery on that order. Zap! Because he's showing the prototype. He has no intention of making delivery on that order. So, much like the missile game in 007's Never Say Never, with each misleading answer, the shocks grow in intensity until one of you pass out. The BS Blaster shock collar can also be used at design meetings, contract negotiations, first dates. Proudly made in America by Better Than Nothing Industries.
Oh, God, we all need
wow.
that. All right. So
Need one right now.
anyway, before we get back to the show, I just had a question because here we did this briefly last year. I just want to ask my fellow Lumen brothers and sister.
Lumen humans.
Wait, what was the name? we
Union
came
of
up-
Lumens.
Lumen people.
No, but we had that great name for our new company.
The luminous people.
Luminous
Luminous
group.
group.
The Luminous group. All right, my Luminous. You guys have been on the floor.
Not much.
I'm talking about here, not on the floor. Right? You guys have been on the floor.
Not much.
What one product did you see here on this floor that you liked?
I do not count because I've spent this whole time at the airport.
Okay. Why don't you tell everybody about your experience at the airport?
Well, I live a 45-minute plane ride from here, and I spent 12 hours at the airport yesterday. Yes, because the plane had an emergency light out. We're going to LDI. How many lighting people are on this plane?
I can change a bulb.
Yes, so apparently nobody could change a lamp, right? So yeah, they grounded us, and they had to get the part from LAX, which was like 4 hours of traffic, if you know Southern California. And then they brought back the little lamp to fix it, and then another part was broken, so they had to go back to LAX, which is another part. So literally I spent 12 hours in the airport and did not see the floor, so I can't contribute.
And you came in last night, right?
came
Late
in-
last night. Then this is your third session today.
Yes, my third session today. So I was on the floor for about 20 minutes, but I cannot. Besides the cool, Roby had a cool, what was that thing? It looked like a Buddha or something, like display.
Oh, you mean the booth?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well-
I didn't see their show. I just walked past it and
By
said,
the
oh,
way,
that's neat.
by the way, I've been going to LDI since the first year. Not every 30 years, but probably at least 20 of them. And I've never had to go to the bathroom more than this LDI. And you know why? Because there's water everywhere. And it's something, Stan, you had mentioned in the last week's episode. We were asking what you want to see at LDI. You said you wanted to see more waterproof fixtures.
Oh, yes.
Well, they're all over the place.
They're all over, yeah, everybody's doing that.
They are all over the place.
Can I give you
now.
mine?
Yes.
So I haven't been on the floor much, so I haven't been to everybody's booth, but I came back to see your product the second time that was shown last year, because now I want to buy it, but I can't buy it. And it's Rosebrand's Darknet.
Oh, yeah.
Have you all seen
Well, that was
that?
from last year, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
here last year. I was doing a show called Rough Magic. It's the perfect solution for this production. So I said, that's 40 feet wide, okay, but by 1 yard, it's $1,500. So it's $12,000 for this drop. And I said, who are you building this for? Who is going to buy this? And they were like, well, it's a kind of a specialty product, and there'll be very few. And I went, yeah, there will be very few instances of this product. So are you sort of designing something intentionally to be so special that, there'll be 4 shows in Vegas will have it, and nobody else in the world will have it, and I don't know what the business model is there. But I did think of this. I did ask, are you doing that with like nanotechnology coating on it? Like, what are you doing? And she did say, well, it's a paint. It's a certain kind of paint with a gain that we had designed. And I thought, I work at a really big university with lots of material scientists. I wonder if we could do that.
A research university, right?
Right.
Watch out.
I mean, we've got some pretty people not in the theater department, okay, who know how to do that kind of thing. So
People
that,
who can actually think.
Somebody's going to come get you with a dart
well, but
gun
that's
and take
really,
you out of here.
that product is phenomenal. That it's, in regular light, it's invisible. You project on it and you see the image. It's like Pepper's Ghost, a 21st century version of Pepper's Ghost. So that one for me, I'm doing a project where I'm going to use ETC's new rigging product called Fly Pipe, which is basically a self-climber. It's a pipe with the motor rides on the pipe. You hook it up and down she goes, about 600 pounds on a 21-foot stick. So that's going to be a nice solution for me in scenarios where we can't afford, automated rigging. So light pipe. And then I went to see quickly because one of my students was excited about, Martin sent the thing out about the Allure, which is a profile fixture, but each LED emitter, can change colors independently. I think frankly, everybody who's making an LED array and a fixture, why not just give us control of the emitters independently? How tough is that to do on the PCB board? I don't know. So that's kind of cool. It's a bit gimmicky.
BIs did that.
BIs do, in wash fixtures, but not in profiles.
Right.
And Martin showed that last year where you can have the center of the beam hotter, you control the center of the beam and the outside of the beam. That takes us back to old beam and field angle. So, that Allure thing maybe is gimmicky, but I thought,
Yeah, because what's the
maybe
point
in
of
concert
that?
situations it'll be really, and that's all I've seen. I haven't been around much, and I got to go back to CAST software because they want to tell me more about the academic release, and I think that's a big piece of news.
Cool.
Pick me, pick me.
Steve, you're
I'm
next.
I'm speaking now to my brothers and sisters who live on the road. In the back corner near GLP, there is the Cozy Roadie. Have you guys been back there? The Cozy Roadie. I'm telling you,
It's one of our sponsors.
what they have done is they have taken a really nice leather, comfy, cozy office chair, and they've taken that thing and made it into a transformer. They pull a pin, the top flips down. They have a thing at the bottom. It looks like it came off a battleship. You can pull this thing apart, put it in a road box, and travel with it. I, for one, have spent hundreds of dollars because I show up and someone says, here's your chair, and it came off the top of the rig and was broken. So it's like every 3 stops, I'm sending someone to Staples to buy me a chair. So the Cozy Roadie, go back and take a look at it. Husband and wife team out of Arizona. They're going to make millions.
Cozy Roadie.
Right. That definitely sounds like one of our sponsors, so
Yeah,
we
it
can't
does.
steal it. Okay, and then finally, I'm just going to mention speaking of GLP, a shout out to them. Last year, my favorite item was
Atom.
GLP. No, it wasn't the Atom, it was the fan. The
Oh, the
Force
fan.
20.
Fan
I
thing.
love that. I love that. I thought that was the fantastic. I'll use it twice. All right. But this year they have the FP, is it? No, FR1, the FR1, which is basically an Atom, which I love because they're really small. They have zoom. They have a decent zoom in it. They are CMY, just lovely. Actually, it's RGB, not CMY. Right, RGB. No, I think. Anyway, they come in different forms, but it's on a yoke. And it's funny because Steve was mentioning this last week about a birdie, a type of birdie that was automated birdie, the pan and tilt.
I'm tired of, I love these lights, but I don't like a 12-inch high footlight at the front of the stage. I want a color-changing birdie size. Doesn't have to be a birdie. And if it's pan and tilt, that's great. So let me tell you, I called my electrician, Terry, and she said, oh, I can build that for you right now, hon. You can build me a pan tilt birdie that color changes? And she goes, the pan tilt's going to be kind of hard, but I just took an unbelievable amount of multicolor LED tape and crammed it in that birdie. She goes, you won't believe how good it looks. The output of that light, it color changes. She says it looks like hell when you look at it from the front, but when you look at it from the audience point of view, it is gorgeous. So I'm trusting Dawn Askew, my electrician. I can't wait to get back to Dallas and see what Frankenstein thing she came up with. But let me tell you, I did mention my pan tilt birdie to high end. And those guys were all sitting around the table going, yeah, and they're thinking about it. They're thinking
GLP
about
has it already.
Their problem is motor size.
Gantum.
Oh, Gantum?
Gantum, maybe. I haven't
They
been to
don't
the
have
Gantum.
Oh, they don't have the
I haven't
birdie,
been
though.
to the Gantum
Yeah.
yet, but they make the little ones. And now, back to Light Talk.
Okay, our next question. And we got to do this quickly because we only have like 15 minutes left.
Yep.
While growing in inventory, which would you purchase next? Front light or dance boom, side light, and why? So apparently you already have backlight.
But you
Right.
don't have a Light Talk baseball
No,
cap.
who is this?
Whose question is
Whose
this?
questions?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
There
thank
we
you.
go.
What's your name? What's your name?
Molly.
Molly. Congratulations.
So Molly, are you saying that you have lights already? Just looking for.
We have sight lights and overheads and catwalk.
Okay, so they have cyc lights, overhead, and catwalk.
Okay.
Which would you do first? Well, this is easy for me. You'd go with side light. You'd go with the booms because, when I do shows, I have front light, but I usually run it at about 20%, 15%, 30 maybe at the most. The side light is really what's going to give you the real dynamic shaping light and the most theatrical and powerful shape.
I'm going to second side light. That's all I got.
I agree.
I could give you my little biology thing about side light. I've said it on.
That's in episode 17.
It's in episode
Okay,
7.
go back to episode 17, his biology explanation.
It's
is there.
why we love side light. You can't help but love it. It's
It's a chemical reaction.
need to listen
chemical
again.
reaction in your brain. It is built into your body. You can't. This is why photographers like what they call magic time, dawn and dusk. When something's lit from the side, should I not go into it?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. When you get information easily, your brain gives you a dopamine response. When you get information difficultly, it's hard. So the side light gives you the edge, and your brain knows what it is. And when you get the information more easily, you get a pleasure juice. That's why. And you can't take that away.
That explains
Is
it all.
is that a technical
dopamine,
term?
baby.
Pleasure
Dopamine.
juice.
Drop
get
the
a dopamine.
Xanax, get some side light.
The brain rewards you for easy, and it punishes you for hard.
Give me, well,
How's that?
No, keep
okay,
going.
that's the other way
Move on.
around. But we love the juice. Let's just say,
All right.
okay? So there it goes.
Side light juice.
All right, who's next?
We live in a world full of bad lighting. Who is this? Nice, you get a hat.
Come get your
Well,
hat.
this is Douglas B. Sorry, it
Douglas.
says.
Douglas.
Thank you,
All right.
Douglas. We live in a
Congratulations,
world
Douglas.
full of bad lighting. As a lighting professional, what one thing would you change that we may all live in better lit environments?
Oh, wow.
I would have everything lit by lighting designers and not by engineers.
Nothing against engineers.
No.
But lighting designers, right.
Wow, got applause.
Yeah, engineers are brilliant and they have amazing jobs and they're brilliant, right? But
they
like,
keep us from burning down
look
the
at this
buildings.
room.
Yeah.
This is lit by an engineer. This is not lit by a lighting designer, probably. So that's what I would say, because you want people that are more sensitive to the artful side of lighting. That could make everything look more beautiful, and we could still reach the foot candle levels that we all need in this room. That's all I'm saying.
And the emotional side. We just feel better when we are beautifully lit. You know what I do? I'm the lighting Nazi at school. I go down the hallway and I look into people's offices and they have those horrible fluorescent. I said, turn those off. I'll go down to Target and buy you a $10 torchire lamp or something, but the better color temperature that doesn't have horrible shadows.
We should have brought some good lighting for today.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm wearing a hat. Steve?
Oh, no, I agree. I totally
Oh,
agree.
that's easy. Okay.
I got one on this. So this is a big conversation. Ann mentioned illuminating engineers, right, which are out there, and they've been lighting space for a long time. But here's the critical difference, and this is a big conversation in that field. They're licensed. So in Europe, for example, there's a movement to license the lighting designer, not the engineer. So if we wanted to have a movement, so to speak, and there is a bit of this movement in this country, because there are the International Association of Lighting Designers, which is based in the United States, and the architectural lighting designers has an impetus to lobby state legislatures to license lighting designers, so that all the work is not just in the hands of the engineer. They own that, right, politically. So if we really want to make that change so that the light in this room could be functional and aesthetic, which is what Ann is getting to, we have to assert ourselves as not just people who play with lights and make pretty concerts. That there's no license for that. There's liability in what they do, so they are licensed and responsible. So we would have to sort of up our game and then lobby for that kind of a change. That's a long-term goal. Probably happen after I'm gone, but I would encourage us to do that. It's raising the lighting design profession to the same level as an architect or an engineer, and we should.
All right.
What is that?
That's my stomach.
The subway?
That's a Subway.
Steve's got the next question.
Okay. I'm looking at you, Terry. Have you ever dealt with a master electrician who continuously slacks off carrying out your notes? Yeah. Who was this? All right, come on.
Come on up.
Yeah, all right.
What's your name? Drew.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Drew.
Drew.
Great question.
And how do you resolve this issue? Okay, so short answer.
Fired.
Fired. I try to get rid of that master electrician. Boy, that is a tough one.
It is.
I think it kind of depends on where you are. I think if I'm traveling to a theater, the first thing I do when I'm doing a show out of town is I contact the master electrician. I send all my paperwork to he or she, and I say, let's talk. Let's talk about the equipment. Tell me, what is your A equipment, what is your B equipment, what is your C equipment, and what am I thinking using your Kliegel 1355s as a front of house wash. So I try to avoid conflict with the master electrician, and sometimes conflict leads to people just saying, well, to hell with him, I'm going to slow down a little bit. But I want the master electrician to be on my side. I want that master electrician or that production electrician to feel like they are contributing and they are a valued team member, which they are. Because I think this question can be turned around. What do you think of a lighting designer who is a continuous slacker and can't get his or her light plot to me on time, or cannot seem to get a color order to me on time? Maybe I'm idealistic, but I think as we move up the food chain, we find better and better and better people to work with, and they're confident in who they are, and they want to do a good job. My first master electrician in New York, I was very young and very naive when I did my first show in the city. And my master electrician and my assistant was his wife. They were maybe 10 years older than me. And they came in and they very gently found every mistake in my light plot. They found everything that was wrong. From things like, you've put in a lot of 12-3 cable. Do you really need that? Well, that's the cable I knew from college. And they said, what you really need here on that load is 14.3. Yeah, we could probably use some 16.2 here. Do you really want to send a shop order in that says ellipsoidal complete? Do you even know what that means? Do you need a gel frame for every light? They gave me a really good lesson. So I followed someone at SMU by the name of Bill Eckhart. And Bill Eckhart was a Broadway designer for years with his wife. And the one thing that he used to say, which I really believed, is that young lighting designers should work with mature and talented master electricians. And young master electricians should work with mature and talented lighting designers. Because how much do we learn by observation? How much do we learn by, a simple kind of whisper in our ear? So I would say fire him, but if you can't fire him or her, sit down, have a cup of coffee, and try to find resolution on this, because it'll just make everyone's life a whole lot better at the end of the day.
Can I add something to that? Because you struck a memory. We interviewed Fred Foster last summer at the ETC workshop, and I don't remember if he said it during the interview or not, but somewhere along the line he said this. He said a bunch of these industry veterans were sitting around talking about who their mentors were. And they had noticed that all of their mentors were 10 or more years older than they were. And they thought that that was a value because for two reasons. One, the experience that Steve mentioned, and also that they weren't competing for the same work. Right? So the mentor was perfectly happy to help you move you along. But if you're in the same generation, you're in competition. But I think there's some wisdom in that, in having some generational differences in those positions. We can't control that, obviously.
Well, you see everybody who is in the touring industry sees this every day of the week. There are 15 people on the crew who are brilliant, and there's that one person that is just, hey, can I have a T-shirt? Always seems to be wandering off. So in that case, you can kind of be fortunate and just too bad promoters paying for him or her. Let's turn them loose on something that is just not going to slow us down all day long.
Okay, great. We have our final question of the day. Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have 2 more hats.
two more
How'd that
hats. I
work
don't know
out?
how that happened.
We'll give this out to someone who comes in.
One of them Steve's.
Oh, okay. And we'll figure it out.
Well, so I don't know who asked this, so I'm going to ask it and see if we can figure out who asked it. This is, what kind of things should I put on my website? Who asked that question? Come on up here. All right. Okay. What's your name? Josh. Thank you, Josh. Have a hat.
Josh is one of my proud students at SMU.
All right. Okay, Josh.
There you go.
It was not rigged. We didn't know we were giving a hat to him.
No, okay. But if anybody wants this last hat, come see us after the show.
Oh man, there's a
can
fight,
raffle
there's
it
a
off.
rush.
Bidding war. I think on your website, pretty pictures. I just want to start there. Pretty pictures. Because you want to think about who your website is speaking to. And this is me thinking about lighting designers, right? If your website is, you're hoping a director will look at your website and hire you, then they want to see pictures. Photos. They don't want to see light plots. Right. They do not want to see light right. They don't know what a magic sheet is. So leave all that stuff off. If you're looking to be an assistant to a designer, so then you're thinking about your audience of your website, right? If the designer is looking to hire an assistant, then put your drafting on it, then put your paperwork, your magic sheets, all that stuff, as well as some pretty pictures, because a designer will not hire you as an assistant unless they know you have a design eye. So that really matters to have both in that place. And thirdly, I'd say if you're looking to go to grad school, then have the pretty pictures and the paperwork and anything else you've done. So if you've also done props and you've also done scenery, put that on there, because a grad school wants to look at sort of the breadth of your work and not just, the 2 shows or the 12 shows you've designed.
Yeah, that pretty much puts it. You guys have anything to add?
No, I would say when you're showing your website and your portfolio and you're out there trying to get that first job, it's also really important to be social.
Put a picture on.
I was going to say, if Steve Shelley were in the room, he would say, be sure you're at opening night at some of these little off Broadway houses, find out where the local watering hole is, let people know who you are. And that's a very important part of getting that first job.
Absolutely. Well, that Hammond organ solo tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
So if you take us seriously and you decide to litigate, just remember that the law firm who we've rehired of Phosphor, Tungsten, and Shyster will defend us until our retirement accounts are completely empty.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Humans.
Yeah.
Coming to you from the Las Vegas Convention Center in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's right. And be sure to tune in next week when we present our 2nd annual IRTA special. Everything you ever wanted to know about the IRTA process, with our special guest and executive director of IRTA, Tony Hagopian.
All that and a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting questionable lumen knowledge around the world.
So we'll see you guys all next week. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.